Hello again, Year 9. I hope you're well. Today we're going to be looking at life in Nazi Germany, continuing with that inquiry. And your title today is How and Why Did Treatment of Jewish People in Germany Change between 1933, the year Hitler became Chancellor, and 1939, the year World War II began? And so to understand this, we need first of all to understand a very long and complicated German word, Volksgemeinschaft. It's written down here. Hitler wanted to create something he called the Volksgemeinschaft, which is German for people's community. The word Volk is German for people. You might know the car brand Volkswagen, meaning people's car. That was actually a company set up in Nazi Germany to make cars for the German people. Obviously, it changed ownership after World War II, but that was where it came from. So the people's community, Volksgemeinschaft, Hitler wanted to create a perfect society as he saw it. And to make that society perfect as he saw it, there was an inner circle, the people who were allowed into the Volksgemeinschaft, and he then had to exclude certain people who he thought would make that society imperfect or unpure. Now, where did he get these horrendous ideas from? He didn't just make them up overnight. He didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to create a racially pure society. These ideas have been swirling round for a very long time, not just in Germany either. A lot of ideas about there being different races of people and Europeans being superior to others. Those ideas go back to the time of the slave trade and the British Empire. A lot of British so-called scientists at that time sort of looked at the world around them and thought, they were trying to put different things into different categories, and they thought that human beings could be put into different categories of races as well, with, as they saw it, pale-skinned Northern European people in the best category, because their evidence was, the British Empire has taken over so much of the world, British people must be superior. Of course, it's utterly false. This idea that there are even different races of humans has been pretty roundly debunked by science. What DNA and the human genome being mapped has told us is that human beings are a lot more mixed than we ever thought. There are no sort of separate races of people in the way that someone like Hitler thought there were. But he took all those ideas in, he believed in them, and before he ever took power, right back in the 1920s when he was writing his book Mein Kampf, Hitler said, I want to create this racially pure world. And there were enough people out there who thought that sounded like a good idea and didn't sound like a complete madman, as we would hopefully think now if someone started saying that. That, as you know, he eventually managed to get his way into power. So back to this idea of the Volksgemeinschaft for a second. Let's have a look first of all, who's not allowed in the Volksgemeinschaft. So he wanted to create a racially pure society with only Aryan people. That was the word. He didn't come up with it, but it was a word that was being used to describe Northern European people. The sort of the stereotype is, I suppose, blonde hair and blue eyes. But it's a myth to think that Hitler only thought those people would be allowed in the Volksgemeinschaft. They were just kind of like the idealised version, the best as he saw it. Ironically, of course, because he had neither blonde hair or blue eyes himself. So he didn't want anyone who was not a member of the so-called Aryan race to be in his country, in his people's community. And Jewish people, Hitler's one of the main reasons he had for his anti-Semitism, his hatred of the Jewish people, was that he considered them to be a different race from the so-called German race. So they were not allowed in the Volksgemeinschaft. He didn't want them in his country. He also didn't want gay people. He didn't want anybody with disabilities that could be passed down through the generations. He didn't want so-called asocials, people who couldn't contribute anything. That might include alcoholics or homeless people. And he certainly didn't want anybody who opposed the Nazi Party. So all of those people were not welcome in his country, not welcome in his Volksgemeinschaft. Everyone else who wasn't included in these categories could remain in the Volksgemeinschaft. So long as they didn't, become an opponent of the Nazis, you would be in the inner group, the inner circle. And you would be repeatedly told how special and great you were. As a member of the German race, you were wonderful, you were better than everyone else in the world. And not only that, you get some very real benefits as well. Old people would get heating, money and wood to burn in the winter to make sure they didn't get cold in the winter. Mothers would get help with their babies and would even get money or rewards for the more babies they had. Holidays would be provided for people. And that famous Volkswagen that we were talking about before was promised to people as well. You'd even get a car. The Volkswagens in the end never really turned up. There was more of an empty promise, that one. So that's what the Volksgemeinschaft is. It's a difficult term for us to understand. Those of you doing history at GCSE, which is, I think, most of you, it's great that that's going on, we're going to learn about this concept a lot more in Year 11, but it's really good for you to start thinking about it now. And the reason I wanted to explain it is because this underpins really everything that Hitler is trying to do in running Germany. Once you understand that for him, everything was seen through like this racial lens, he wanted this racially pure society, then we can sort of understand some of the terrible things he did as well. We can sort of understand what he was aiming to do and why he was aiming to do that. So your first task is to do a reading, which I've included for you. It's quite a complicated reading, so I just want you to do your best with it, basically. And it starts off by talking about the Volksgemeinschaft, so have a look at that. Then the next thing after that is to look at some key terms to do with this topic. Try and find the right definitions for the right key terms, and then have a think about why it was that Hitler didn't change things for the Jewish people in Germany immediately. Why did it happen slowly over time? So I want you to answer the questions around the reading, which is talking about all the different things Hitler did to change the lives of Jewish people in Germany. Why did it happen so slowly, do you think? Why did it not happen in 1933 on January the 31st, the day after Hitler became Chancellor? Why did some of those changes not take place until 1938 or 1939? Okay, so enjoy those tasks, if that's the right word. This is a sobering topic, it's an important one for us to learn about. As I say, I'm glad most of you are doing history for GCSE. You can learn about this in more detail, hopefully in a real classroom as well. I really hope we're back in the classroom by the time you're in Year 11. But for those of you who aren't, it's important that you learn about this now as well. Okay, I'll see you next week.